And then, of course, Star Wars on December 18th. All right. Good morning to Joe Rose.
Good morning.
Desert Rose Tax and Accounting. He's coming on about once a month and trying to help our individuals and business owners try to do their taxes in the best way possible and try not to overpay. Is that a good description?
That is.
In the best legal way humanly possible. How long has Desert Rose been around?
We have been around for 13 years. I've been doing this in Tucson for about 25.
Okay. And if you want to make an appointment or see Joe, 747-4964. Diana usually is answering the phone. She's quite a character, that one. I like her a lot. And then your office is on the south side of 22nd, just east of Craycroft? Or Swan?
Between Craycroft and Wilmot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll see it. It's a freestanding building, and you'll see a big giant rose. He made it really easy for you.
A desert rose.
Is it? Okay, so explain the difference.
It's a different kind of a rose.
Is it a real thing called a desert rose?
Okay.
That's
absolutely.
Okay. Did you come up with this name, or?
I came up with it just because I am the rose that lives in the desert.
I got you. Okay. So we are on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, a day that will live in infamy. And we want to talk about there's things you should get done or think about getting done before December 31st, correct?
Absolutely.
The idea, there are some things that between your tax filing, you can't really. Is there any things you can do? There's things you can write a check to after January 1st, or is that kind of?
There are a few things that you can do after January 1st, but most of the opportunities you have expire at the end of the year, so you want to take advantage of them now.
How many people, if you're going to think about the people who are taxpayers who are listening to this show, how many of them don't take advantage? You think percentage of your client? Well, we know your clients. Let's just say the regular Joe or Jane out there aren't taking advantage of things they could be doing before December 31st. What do you think?
In my personal opinion,
yes.
I think probably about 95% of the people out there overpay their taxes.
So they're leaving money on the table is what we're saying.
Absolutely.
And we know we talk about the tax credit stuff. We'll talk about that too with some like working poor tax credits and things like that with the state. But there are other things we could be doing in relation to our federal taxes also, right?
Absolutely.
So what we're going to do before it's over, we're going to talk about what are the things that you should be thinking about doing before December 31st. We'll explain a few of the things you could do after December 31st. We're going to cover some new stuff. We have new House of Horrors coming from the Affordable Care Act is what's
Absolutely.
happening. Yeah. Thank God. IRS phone scams we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk about those Arizona tax credits we were talking about.
Yes.
All right. So I want you to pay attention. I want you to get your piece of paper, your tablet, whatever you need to make some notes here, because Joe's going to give you some valuable stuff to start thinking about. And if you need help navigating through all of this craziness, go to desertrosetax.com or call 747-4964. If you have a question right now for Joe, 790-2040, wakeuptucson@gmail.com. Yes, Edward.
I'm waiting.
I see Terry number one, but that was a...
Well, I was going to wait till the next way in, but Terry number one called in to say happy birthday, as he should, and as you need there. So there you go.
Well, when you have the number one shareholder in Good News Communications,
yes.
Terry number one shareholder, saying happy birthday, I wanted to get it out as
soon as possible. And I knew you were introducing Joe, so we didn't have time right then, but he said make sure that he knows, and he'll call you tomorrow.
Terry, thanks for the love, man.
So he's there.
All right, let's go pay some bills. Joe Rose, Desert Rose Tax.
Love is a rose, but you better not pick it. It only grows when it's on the vine. Oh, sweet child of mine. Oh, sweet love of mine. Whoa, sweet child of mine.
8:18 in the morning, you're on the DeSimone Daily Double Show with Joe Rose from Desert Rose Taxes on 22nd, 797-4964. We've already had listeners call Joe and take advantage of his expertise. So, Ed, you brought up a picture of the Desert Rose.
Yes, and played a little Axl Rose for you, too. But
How many Rose songs can we come up with? I don't even know. We know the Rose by Bette Midler.
Oh, geez.
That's another
Rose
one.
Garden. I thought of those, and I'm going, listen, maybe not. We can. The Rose.
Oh, that
Rose
old
Garden.
one, San Antonio Rose.
The Rose
Very
San
good.
Antone, yeah.
You never promised me a rose garden.
Got that? Yeah.
Okay.
The Yellow Rose of Texas.
Yellow
We're
Rose
done.
of
We're
Texas.
Coming up. Okay. So there's the desert rose, which is beautiful. It's corrugated. What do you call it? Variegated.
Well, it looks interesting how it's like a tree trunk
Well, that one does. Yeah.
that has these amazing group of these desert roses on top. So I'm learning something new every day, Joe Rose. All right, let's get into saving people some money and not overpaying. We know the IRS needs more of your money, so and our federal government to do the amazing job that they're doing right now
Absolutely.
with our money. So, what you want to talk about the expired?
Yeah, well, we were talking about on the break, are the expired tax provisions that a lot of people are affected by, that they've grown accustomed to, and Congress has been extending them every year. As of right now, Congress has not extended these provisions. They expired December 31st of 14, and they've been talking about extending them, but they may not even get around to it until January. We'll have to wait and see.
So you're saying there's things that expired a year ago
Yes.
that they may bring back in January that will be retroactive for 15.
Correct. I mean, I don't know how you can do good tax planning if you don't even know what the tax laws are going to be until the year after it closes.
So I asked you off air when you brought this up, what is an example of a provision of the tax law that they did that with, where they went a whole year and then said, oh.
Well, for individuals, a good example would be the energy credit that we're used to getting for air conditioners and insulation and things like that. The mortgage insurance premiums that you pay on your mortgage, the ability to deduct sales tax instead of your state tax on your itemized deductions, or the teacher deduction of $250 for school supplies. I mean, these are things that affect a lot of the population out there of taxpayers. And for businesses, it would be the ability to get the bonus depreciation or the expense, the 179 expense deduction for new equipment. Now it's gone back to pre-depression levels of $25,000 for the year. It was up to $200,000. And so businesses aren't sure how much to reinvest in their businesses or whether they can write it all off or not.
So these things you just talked about, are they they're not in play right now as we speak?
As of right this second, they are not in play.
I mean, when you look at I'm thinking about when you talk about the teacher's deduction. So think about this, okay? We have teachers that we know, we all have them in our lives, that are spending, they don't make that much money, basically, but they are buying supplies, sanitizer, pencils, all this stuff for their classroom because the school's not doing it for them.
Exactly.
So that would be something I would think that's warm and fuzzy if you're a politician. Why, of all of these things, I mean, they're all cockamamie, don't get me wrong, but why screw over the teacher who just dropped $200 in hand sanitizer and erasers
paper.
and paper? You're right.
I know. Well, the Senate has agreed on these extensions, and the House is trying to push to make them permanent so that they don't have to go through this ritual every year. But they haven't come together and agreed on anything yet.
So next time we have David Schweikert, congressman from Phoenix, on the line, I'm going to ask him, where the hell's this at right now? Because that'd
be a good question.
I mean, the idea that we're having this much trouble on the House side making it permanent?
Yes.
I mean, we're not talking this is not like crony capitalism kind of stuff here. We're just talking about some basic stuff that's been going on for a while, especially the thing you're talking about business-wise. So Joe and I have always said on the Wake Up Tucson show, and it applies on so many levels, business owners thrive in a fair, level, predictable playing field.
Predictable would be nice.
And what you're saying basically adds more chaos to the average Jane and Joe's business.
Welcome to my world, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In relation to right now, are there any things that we know that are gone after this year? I'm thinking about the same scenario as we move into next year. Is there anything on mildly obvious to you as a professional in this that is going away after this year?
Well, if they don't extend these, or if they do extend these will expire again December 31st.
Okay, so I was just wondering if there's something that's still in play now that is on the docket to go away.
No, most of these were implemented to stimulate the economy during all this craziness that we've been through.
790-2040 is the phone number. WakeUp@gmail.com. The energy one, when you're talking about the one, so if you bought a new air conditioner or like an efficient one and did insulation, you could deduct part of that, all of that?
Yeah, it would qualify for a tax credit, an energy non-commercial energy credit.
So they were still doing that up until last year?
Correct.
Interesting. I didn't even know they were.
Double pane windows and doors and energy efficient things for your home.
How much of a credit could you qualify for? Do you remember? I know you got a zillion regulations in your head. It was just a curiosity question. 790-2040. Let's go to Bill on line 2. Bill, you're on with Joe Rose from Desert Rose Tax. What's up, bud?
Good morning, gentlemen. Hey. My comment is on this, tax, when they do tax laws that are retroactive. That is really criminal, in my opinion, because how is a person supposed to know what the law is so you can abide by it when they can go back and change it 18 months ago and on and on? I mean, I'm serious about this. Congress should be just held accountable. I'm amazed that people that are in the business of accounting and tax law and all that stuff cannot just get that stopped.
Well, we have been trying. But I agree with you. It should be a criminal offense.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is that
they're stealing from you because you've played by whatever the laws are today, up to today, and then they go and change it and say, well, no, this was a law, but we changed it back to 2 years ago or 18 months ago, and you owe more or whatever. I got trapped by that back in the 80s on something, and that's been burning me for decades.
You know what it is, Bill, is that it's not a sexy issue when it comes to Election Day. So you'll never see a Chamber of Commerce like the United States Chamber of Commerce is going to come after and say, you really shouldn't vote for these 4 individuals because they didn't really help us with they're perpetrators of delaying this tax. You never hear that on the campaign trail ever.
It's just a shame. But because that's like, if they can do tax law retroactive, why can't they do something else that's retroactive? In other words, on anything.
Like criminal law.
Anything, yeah. That's just basically really bad stuff, okay? See you guys.
Thank you, sir. Well, that's why you have to, you got to break up when there's one party controls both houses on the presidency. Sometimes you can even get some weirder stuff after that. But you're right. And, why, you are setting the precedent one day for why don't we do this with criminal law?
Yeah.
It'd be better than a presidential pardon. 790-2040 is the phone number. When we come back, we're going to start covering some of these deductions and different things you should be thinking about right now. Because if you want to pay, look, I don't know if all you guys are just swimming in discretionary income coming up this year, but if you're not, you should stay tuned and listen to what Joe has to tell you, because it could save you a few shekels, as we like to say, a few rubles, as we like to say. So 747-4964 to set up a cup of coffee with Joe. If you have a question for Joe right now, 790-2040 is the phone number. We're doing songs. Has to do with the Rose. This is the Desert Toes Rack. Wake up, Tucson.
Strange as the blue up above.
Beneath the bitter snows lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes
just to make this whole Rose thing even better.
Yeah.
So you played Yellow Rose of Texas, or San Antonio? San Antonio Rose, excuse me.
San Antonio, yes.
With Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. Joe, you just told me a story off air about your connection with that song. Please explain, because it's too good to let go.
Well, we were always told growing up was that that song was written by my uncle for aunt.
Okay.
And that out of desperation for money, he sold it to Bob Wills.
And the last name of the guy, now your name is Joe Rose, but the last name of your uncle who wrote it is?
It was Simon's. It was on my mother's side.
So it just happened. Now, were there any roses in the family? There were no roses in the family at
Not
that
at
point.
that time, no.
I'm telling you, man, it's spooky. It's a good story. It's a little spooky. 8:33 in the morning. We're on Joe Rose, Desert Rose Tax on 22nd. Let's go to Eric on line 2. Eric, you're on with Chris and Joe Rose. What's up?
Yes, I just wanted to point out the answer to the question of why no ex post facto criminal laws.
Yes, sir.
The Supreme Court, the Constitution actually bans ex post facto laws, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court decades ago interpreted that to prohibit only making something a crime after the fact, not applying to civil laws. And so you could make any civil law retroactive. They could retroactively triple your capital gains tax on your house or anything like that. So
Don't give him any ideas, Eric.
So there is a constitutional ban, but it only applies to criminal law, unfortunately.
What decade was that Supreme Court decision?
I'm trying to remember it. I'm guessing it was the 1970s. It's been quite a while.
Okay.
But there was a case in 2010, as you might recall, the estate tax, the death tax, expired for 1 year in 2010, and there was a Texas billionaire who died and left his money to his heirs, and Democrats controlled both the Congress and the presidency at the time, talked about reinstating the death tax retroactive to January 1st of that year, which would have cost those heirs billions, and ultimately they cut a deal in tax cuts, and they never did retroactively reinstate the death tax. But I was kind of hoping that they would, because they sure would have taken it back to court and hopefully overturned it. I'm not sure the current Supreme Court would allow the retroactive institution of taxes if somebody actually challenged it. But the precedent is that it only applies to criminal law.
Eric, thanks for the excellent call and the knowledge, man. Great job. Thank you
very much.
790-2040 is the phone number. I guess, that'd be, he's right. Again, if you brought that before the Supreme Court again, I don't know if you could really do anything with it. But the idea that we're doing this retroactive stuff just makes no sense, man.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Just leave it be or let it go. Whatever it happens, happens. 790-2040 for questions or good knowledge like that for Chris and Joe. Let's talk about right now. We are 24 days till New Year's Eve. What are some of the things that people should be thinking about right now to start doing to save money for tax year 2015?
Well, right now you need to sit down and talk to somebody like me for tax planning.
You are correct.
Because every situation is unique, and it really takes a good professional to sit down and weed through all the benefits out there. But one thing that you can look at doing before the end of the year is if you plan on contributing to a retirement plan and don't have one, you need to have it set up by December 31st in order to make that contribution on most of the retirement plans out there. In some cases, you can wait until April 15th or the filing date of the return to make the contribution,
right.
But you have to have that plan set up. Now, in Arizona, we also have tax credits that are really nice in order for us to determine how our tax dollars are spent. Because, as you know, the government's so responsible with our money that not all of us trust them to spend it the way we think it should be.
One of these regular guests that we have in December, of course, is a lot of these nonprofits, these bona fide nonprofits that qualify for these. So we're constantly trying to showcase them, and if whatever they do as their mission appeals to you, hopefully you can make that connection.
Yes. And in Arizona, 2 tax credits you can take advantage of, well, 3 of them, before year end to reduce your tax dollar for dollar. And they also qualify as charitable contributions on the federal if you itemize deductions. You can give up to, a married couple can give up to $400 to any charity in Arizona that helps the working poor, such as the Food Bank, Casa de los Niños. I mean, there's hundreds of them, and the Arizona Department of Revenue has a publication on their website that lists all the qualifying organizations. I don't want to highlight any particular organization.
But that's great. That's a great thing that you can go do that and see which one does it for you.
And then we also, I think it was a few years ago, implemented an additional $400 for a married couple, $200 for a single person, to a qualifying foster care organization like Casa de los Niños. And then you can also give up to $400 to the Military Family Relief Fund through the Arizona Department of Veteran Services.
Now this is one I have never heard of. So,
well, on the veteran one, though, for some reason the legislature limited them to $1 million per year. And they usually max that out before December. So if you went on their website right now, you probably would not be able to donate to them for 2015.
Okay.
So you need to make that donation a little earlier in the year. I don't know why they limit it. Now, in addition to those, you can also give to a public school up to $400 for a married couple. $200 for individual. And then there's 2 private school credits that I don't know the exact amounts off the top of my head, but it's over $1,000 for a married couple and over $500 for a single person for each of the 2 credits. So for a married couple, you can give like $2,100 for both of the credits. Now, for the private school and the public school credits, all 3 of these school credits, something new this year, they're allowing you to make those contributions all the way up until April 15th. Now, this is a win-win for everybody. Up until this year, the public school had to be done by year end, but now you have until April 15th to make that one.
Okay.
And so you can literally be sitting down, doing your tax return, and seeing whether you'd benefit from it, giving the credit and filing your taxes.
Now, how about on the, in addition to establishing a qualified retirement account before the end of the year, what are some of the other things that folks can be looking at in relation to how they're setting their stuff up? What are they donating to on the federal side to maybe save a few bucks next year on the tax bill?
Well, like I said, all of these credits qualify for charitable contributions too.
Okay.
On the federal, if you itemize. Another thing is if you want to do the energy credit and the expired provisions and hope that Congress extends them, they all have to be done by year end too. Like businesses buying new equipment, even though they've cut it back to $25,000, you can still take that $25,000 even if they don't extend it.
This is so crazy. You're saying do it anyway in case Congress makes it okay.
Well, they have a history so far of extending it every year, even if it's retroactive. And by all accounts, it looks like they probably will extend them. So I would go ahead and encourage people to go and take advantage of those deductions too.
Tell me about changes in one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, Obamacare.
Oh, goodness. There's a lot going on for 2015, but they're giving you a break for 15, not going to enforce it until 16. But especially for small business owners, if you're an S corp and your corporation is paying your health insurance,
right,
and then starting January 1st of 16, that is a violation of the Affordable Care Act. Now, you don't want to violate this act because the penalty is $100 per day per employee.
So if your corporation, not this year, but next year,
Correct.
is paying for the health insurance
That's right.
of you or your employees, this is a violation.
Of the more than 2% shareholder.
Gotcha.
So the owner of the corporation, the main shareholders of the corporation.
What do they want you to do?
Well,
If they don't want you to do that.
They want it to be included in wages, and you pay Social Security and Medicare tax on it and all that good stuff, and then you, the employee, would pay the health insurance, not the corporation.
This thing's so goofy.
Yeah.
When
It really is.
Your first show, when you brought up that thing about how they're analyzing ratios of credit card revenue to cash revenue.
Yes.
And if that's out of whack with whatever standards or whatever they think for your area and your business, how big that piece of paper you said one of your clients brought you?
Oh, it was over an inch thick.
That's for your health care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, health care. What else about Obamacare should I be worried about or concerned about coming up?
Well, for small employers, if they have a medical expense reimbursement policy, there's a lot of changes going on there. For the most part, the Affordable Care Act did away with those. Unless you have one employee, the law actually says less than two. I don't know why it doesn't just say one employee, because less than two is one. And,
damn you and your Vulcan logic, Spock.
And there again, it's a violation of the Affordable Care Act, and those penalties will accrue. One thing I do want to tell the listeners out there is that if any of you are receiving a premium assistance from the healthcare exchange, that any time your income changes, you need to notify them right away. One thing that we saw a lot this last tax season were people where they got a surprise check for $1,000 or something.
Or got promoted at work.
Or got promoted and forgot to tell the exchange, and then when it came tax time, they had to pay that premium back. And that could be a sizable chunk of money that you're not prepared to pay back. So if any changes in your income occurs during the year, make sure that you contact the exchange and
so
let
basically
them know.
Because basically is it broken up in brackets, so if you bump into another bracket, now all of a sudden
honestly the voodoo that they use on the exchange, I don't understand how they do the calculations, but
it was $1 billion website, Joe.
Oh.
Remember, it was like Michelle Obama's buddy or something originally had a crack at it, and then I think the guys, the Accenture guys, finally fixed it at the end for a measly 300 mil, or I mean $1 billion for a website. We could have built Facebook, Amazon, and eBay for all of that, and actually save another $500 million, I think, before it was over. Any other nightmares in relation to Obamacare I should know about?
Well, and I mentioned this the last time I was on too, but this year for doing your taxes, you will be receiving, if you have health care, you will be receiving a 1095 form. So one more form to keep track of for tax time. And that is required to do your tax return this year. You may actually receive more than one, because one is coming from the exchange. If you're on the exchange, one is coming from your health insurance company provider, and one would be coming from a large employer like Raytheon or something like that.
What are they looking for on this?
Well,
what do they want? What are they trying to glean out of you?
The 1095 is designed to it'll list out what coverage you had, who was covered, how many months you were covered, what months, and that way you can use it to calculate whether or not you owe a penalty for non-coverage on your tax return.
The listener just emailed. They wanted to know about, is there any effect on your state taxes or anything in relation to health care, Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, any of that stuff that you know of?
No,
okay.
Not on the state taxes.
Is there anything in the state tax code that's obvious to you this year that's different than last year in relation to?
The main difference for individuals that I've seen is the extension of time to make that public school contribution credit.
Okay.
Which is great for the public schools.
And we know that Governor Ducey has been over the top about not raising taxes or not trying to add the burden onto the individual or the business owner in this. in the state.
I feel like we pay plenty of taxes in this state. All the different taxes combined, not just income tax.
You know, when you look at the paperwork that Joe has to do for a small business owner just on the basics, even just the money's bad enough. But when you look at the time that's spent to fill out all of these forms, a lot of it redundant.
Yes, yes.
And you say to yourself, we know there's enough wasted man hours in the American economy due to Facebook, YouTube, and your Instagram pages, right?
Oh, but those are non-government people playing with those.
I don't know about that either. But then you look at, I remember Joe Higgins has said this on Wake Up Tucson, when he was running his garbage company, okay, he was the residential trash removal, and Sports Buzz haircuts. He said that basically every month he was filling out or cutting a check to 32 different agencies out there just to keep his businesses in line.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so you see it all the time as doing this for business owners and individuals.
And business owners are often buried by the paperwork involved in running a business, and that's why you have people like me.
If you want to set up a cup of coffee with this gentleman, 747-4964, 747-4964, whether you're a business, an individual, a half hour with Joe, I think will do you good. So also check out desertrosetax.com. We come back, Joe wants to bring up a scam that's going on in relation on taxpayers. So it's a little bit of our public service announcement warning for you guys. So come back, just a few minutes. You're on the DeSimone Daily Double Show. Roy Rogers, I used to eat at his restaurants in New York.
There's a yellow rose.
We're going to come back. Sean McCluskey in like 17 and a half minutes. He's going to rip the knob off at that point. Wake up, Tucson.
So when I left her, it like to broke my heart. And if we ever meet again, we never more shall part.
8:53 in the morning. Can't beat finishing off a little Tony Bennett. Days of Wine and Roses. Now, Ed, you do have to be, I will warn you, Friday is the day before Frank Sinatra's 100th birthday.
Wow.
So I know they had some bullcrap special on CBS last night with,
with
Tony
everybody.
Bennett, but then you had like some, Wiz Khalifa, rapping,
I know.
I got a kick out of you or something like that. But so basically, I don't care who's the guest or whatever, we are doing 90 minutes of Sinatra.
We might not even let you talk. We might just play Sinatra all day. So.
I can do that.
That could happen.
I can do that. Let's go to Paul real quick. He actually will start out. He might have got the scam call that Joe wants to talk about. Paul, good morning. You're on with Joe Rose and Chris DeSimone. What's up, buddy?
Hello. All right. During the last month, I've been getting a call from a sweet voice saying it's the IRS, that I'm under investigation, and I am paying the IRS $50 a month from taxes that I didn't pay 2 years ago. Instead of getting $2,000 back, I'm getting fined $2,000. So I've been paying that this year.
So was it a man or a woman who called you?
It was a woman that called.
And she was leaning on you to drop a credit card so you could take care of your charges now and they won't come and arrest you? Is that what they did?
No, she said call this number. So I called the number, and a man that sounded like he was from India said if I don't come up with pay the IRS $1,000, they're going to come out and arrest me Friday. Yeah. And I said I don't have $1,000.
So I was asking Joe about what he experienced with some of his clients, and Joe had some similar stories. So what were you seeing out there?
Well, Chris, the IRS, first off, the IRS website has these scams listed out verbatim of what's been reported. And we just had a client last week get a call from the IRS, and this is a real popular one right now that's real prevalent, that they want you to give a credit card, pay the tax. They threaten to arrest you or arrest your spouse right then and there. Then, and this particular client just drove straight to our office when he got the call, and we took care of it for him. There's a reporting on Treasury Inspector General's website. You can report it online for these scams, and they are trying to investigate them. But these calls are always asking for small amounts of money, $1,000, $2,000 or less.
Well, he got all the way down to $200,
yeah.
And he said, "Well, go to Walmart." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm being taken."
Yeah, you are being taken. And the thing is, the IRS does not call you without first inundating you with letters.
Yes.
Letters correctly, from what I believe.
And they never call a cell phone.
Yeah, never call a cell phone. And you're right. They're going to send you multiple letters before anyone even gets referred to someone to go.
Right. And
I called the FBI, and they said to call the Inspector of Treasury, like you just mentioned.
Yes.
So, hey,
all right,
Paul, thanks for the heads up, man. Appreciate it.
But I just want to warn your listeners to beware that this is really out there. They're calling a lot of people, and don't be intimidated by them. Just hang up on them and go and report this. It is a scam. The IRS, like I said, will not call you without first inundating you with letters. They're not going to send an investigator for a few $100s. They have better uses of their time and resources than that.
So, again, if you want to find out more about all these things we talked about, set up an appointment with Joe for a cup of coffee. 747-4964, desertrosetax.com, or drop by their office. It's on the south side of 22nd between Craycroft and Wilmot, and you'll see a big giant rose on the sign.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Joe, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for keeping Tucson's individuals and businesses from overpaying the government.
That's what I'm here for.
All right. DesertRoseTax.com, 747-4964. Joe, have an amazing Christmas.
You too, Chris.
We'll see you in the new year, sir.